spend quite some time here hanging out at High Point State Park. I just found a massive amount of reishi mushrooms, and they told me to connect up live, so we'll see what happens. It's been a while. I've been really taking time to just try to harvest my breakfast, lunch, and dinner as much as I can. So I'm currently chewing on some wintergreen berries. I'll show you what I have so far. So I've just been taking one leaf from each plant. Sorry, I said berries, I meant leaves. And I've been taking one leaf from each plant, and I actually have a jar and alcohol with me. So I'm actually going to try tincturing the wintergreen leaves fresh, because thanks to my friend Rachel at Serious Eco Village, she gave me this kind of cordial of wintergreen berry tincture. And the problem with wintergreen is if you pick the leaves, as soon as they dry, they're a lot less potent. They don't really taste like much. So when you make a tea out of the dry leaves, it just doesn't have that same potency. So what I'm going to try to do is make a small batch, maybe 4 ounces of wintergreen leaves. I'm going to chop those up and infuse them in alcohol. So my van is set up basically with a half gallon of 50% alcohol and a bunch of ball jars, of course. So I'll be making some medicines on the road, really getting into fresh tinctures. So one of the things I've been contemplating is, what constitutes a fresh tincture? When you wilt a plant, does that still mean it's fresh, or does it mean that you should consider it in another ratio? Because the thing about tincturing by weight to volume is that you use a ratio either 1 to 2 for fresh plant matter, or 1 to 4 for dried plant matter. If you're interested, you can check out, I have a YouTube video from NOFA, New Jersey, Northeastern Organic Farmers Association, and there I did a tincturing class from start to finish, so that's on my YouTube channel, Return to Nature Skills. But what I'll mention now is, in brief, you have those 2 ratios, and those are really important for basically making it so that you have a substantial amount of alcohol in the plant matter that you're using. And this also is helpful for the fact that then you can use those measurements to capitulate dosage based on all of the historical context of everyone who's ever worked with that herb. So instead of kind of eyeballing it, there's another herb here, ghost pipe, right? So that has semi-toxic properties at quote-unquote high doses. Now, what is a high dose? Well, that depends on how you make the tincture, right? So if you just shove as much as you can in a jar and pour alcohol over it, you may not have the same exact alcohol dosage ratio as you would if you measured it, and then you can look to historically how people are working with it. So another one of my favorite friends, which are around, is Aralia nudicalis, also known as false sarsaparilla. And the berries of that are purple-black. They're really amazing. I've been replanting them when I see them. And also, I've eaten a couple of them, and boy, are they really potent. So they just numb the throat amazingly. And of course, they are that adaptogenic, powerful tonic. So with these reishi, it's really beautiful. This is hemlock reishi. Ganoderma tsugae, Tsugae, because this is a dead hemlock tree. And there are a bunch of hemlocks here, kind of in a hemlock forest. And the question is, let's see, people are... Tara mentions, you've been researching Chimaphila maculata. I believe that's blue cohosh. Can you remind me what species that is? Is it for breaking up kidney stones? If you have any studies in that, can you share? I've never worked with blue or black cohosh very much at all. I harvested black cohosh for the first time not too long ago. As far as kidney stones, I would just, throw out some ideas with dandelion, you know, I really have seen amazing things for gallstones with, what is it called? Joe pie weed, right? So just possibly add those in combination. Good luck. Oh, the striped wintergreen, right? Yeah, so there's two common plants with common names called wintergreen. One is called striped wintergreen. I've never seen that to really have very much flavor or properties other than just being another astringent. So, you know, work with that if you feel called. You know, I think kidney stones as a whole is all about, you know, reducing oxalic acid, but also I think there are some binders to oxalic acid, and I think magnesium is one of them. So we want to reduce oxalic acid, but we also want to increase the other nutrients which help to flush that out of our body instead of it precipitating in the body. So good luck, best wishes. Stones are not very fun. So when we look at these reishi, one of the things you can see is actually, if I rub there, you can see the spores. Right now the spores have deposited on my finger, and of course I can wipe them. Look, I'm planting. Right, and then you look at all these, and these are of course beautiful. This is probably a very old mama, so I don't really need to harvest this entire thing. That would be kind of disrespectful. We want these to go to spore. Another thing to consider is, you see how these white tips, these tips are white, and then this is less white. So that actually is an indicator of having gone to spore. Right, so usually we want to wait until the tips actually turn semi-brown. You see on the underside, really fresh looking white, right? Let's see, I'll use the camera. That's a little less white. So I'm thinking that in this case, since this is the first one I found, I'm going to take one. Tree shrimps are not good to eat. I don't know what you are talking about, Lois. Thanks for my husband. What the hell is going on? Oh, Tara, yeah, dandelion, burdock, and marshmallow for kidney stones. Yeah, check out Joe pie weed as well. And then maybe one of the blue or the black cohoshas for the pain associated with kidney stones can be really helpful. Also, maybe raspberry leaf, all of those options. Shrooms. Lois, please don't repeat propaganda until you repeat it. So, of course, there are mushrooms on trees that are edible. There are mushrooms on trees that are medicinal, and there are mushrooms on trees that are poisonous. There are mushrooms on the ground that are edible. There are mushrooms on the ground that are poisonous. There are mushrooms on the ground that are medicinal. There are plants on the ground that are edible. There are plants on the ground that are poisonous. There are plants on the ground that are medicinal. There are people that are murderers. There are people that are very kind. There are people that are very saintly. You do not make a stereotype or a generalization about people, and why would you do that about mushrooms or plants? So it's very important to know that each individual is their own individual, and we must get to know them as they are, and that keeps us safe and diligent. So, with this group of reishi, I'll probably only take this one, because that's showing that it's released most of its spores. And then this way I'm only taking about 10 to 15% of what I find and allowing this forest to proliferate reishis. The other thing about it is, before you harvest, you should always look around, right? One of the things I really got from the International Herb Symposium when I was up there is Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass, mentioned this really beautiful line of, you always hear this indigenous teaching of, well, don't take the first plant you see, right? And we usually think about, okay, yeah, that makes sense, respect the first plant you see. And yet, at that conference, she said something that's really stuck with me. If you don't take the first plant, then you won't take the last plant. And what that means is, if you leave the first one, obviously, you'll always leave one. So, therefore, you haven't taken them all. And that's something I've really been amazed by and blown away by. So, something to consider. So what I'm going to do is take out my knife, harvest it in a good way with some prayer. Of course, always say thank you. This is medicine. Right? You're transferring the medicine from the forest to the people. And if you do that in a prayerful and good, healing way, then the forest will listen and hear you and make constituents appropriate to that. So we thank you, Reishi, for all your medicine. We bring you to the people. We hope you help the people with lots of healing and magic and opening their senses to the wonderful blessing of the earth. Let's see if I can put this in the way. It's a really wonderful place. I'm on some path that no one really goes, so that's also a factor. If it was in a public area, we would also want to make a consideration. So I'm going to harvest this one. So I'll take out my knife and I'll just cut it from the stem. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There we go. So now it's a clean harvest. It's amazing how Reishi just grows right around trees. Arthan, you're welcome. Everybody's welcome to come visit. Come do some foraging, come to classes. Of course, check out my schedule on returntonature.us. Oh, wow, fresh Reishi smells so amazing. So, of course, there's a look. Of course, you can do all kinds of fun things. With your knife. It's not the artist conch, and of course it will be backwards because Facebook does that. Om Shanti. So what I'm going to do with this is I'll slice it fresh and dry it. I'll dry it in the van, and then I'll be able to break it down into smaller pieces. If you dry it whole, it's very hard to cut or to break down into small pieces, so that's a really important tip to recognize. The other thing we have here is some sacred waters. This it rained last night, so you see that is your church medicine right there, the Reishi waters, the elixir of life. So, you know, that's a little bit about harvesting Reishi. Make sure you smell your medicine as frequently as possible. Also, you can sing your healing songs to the plants. And you can also take all the spores on there and wipe them off. Get them all on my finger here. And then this is a hemlock right next to me that I'll just put them on. And this is just trying to do our best to proliferate the medicines that we seek. We have to do something, and we have to give back. And that's always the fun thing about watching friends who garden and farm. First couple of years, they always say the same thing. Oh man, I grew all this food, and then the animals came and ate it all. Well, considering that we've been takers most of our life, and we've just exploited nature due to the culture that we were grown up in, nature has this sacred rule, which is that there has to be a give and a receive. Since we're not used to that, this is actually a forager bag made by one of the mentorship students, Deb. Nice, nice. Cloth works so good. So there's this sacred give and receive that's necessary. I really see this in the Vedic sacrifice. You make a fire, and what traditionally we do now is people buy things to throw in the fire. And they'll take what's called samagri, which is grain, and they'll offer it to the fire with ghee. Very expensive, right? But when you look at if this was a group of farmers and that was part of their harvest, they're offering back to the earth. That's different if you grew it yourself and you harvested that and you're giving a portion of what you earn back to the earth, and that's what I think is a sacred relationship that humans have tried to break. But you'll see if you try to garden that a percentage of what you're growing will be taken by squirrels and groundhogs and voles and deer, etc. And that's really the sacred. You know, that's really important. So we need to give as we take, and that's the balance that really humans forgot to engage in, which has caused the issues that we're in. So remember to try to keep that sacred relationship flowing. The earth hears you. Mother Earth is responding and listening. Everywhere you step, the mycelium is responding and listening and weighing you and breaking and causing new mushrooms because of where you step. And that mycelium is transmitting information to all of the other species around. There is a network underground, and that is millions and millions, if not billions of years old. So thanks for tuning in, friends. Please feel free to check out my website and all the articles I've been writing on there, returntonature.us. Have a beautiful foraging day.